Welcome to Avenue of Words, where we don't just help you learn English, but also share wisdom that can transform your life. Today, we're exploring a powerful skill that most people overlook, yet the most successful individuals practice it religiously every day. Let me ask you something important. Have you ever noticed how truly influential people often speak less but say more? They don't jump into every conversation. They don't feel the need to defend themselves constantly. They remain calm when provoked. Why is that? Because they understand a profound truth. Once words leave your mouth, you can never truly take them back. You might apologize, you might explain yourself, but the impact has already been made. People may forget the compliments you gave them, but they rarely forget how you made them feel when you weren't really listening. Deep listening is not a sign of weakness. It's a superpower. It's protection. It's preparation. The person who listens deeply learns more, and when you learn more, you grow faster. Remember this wisdom. Thoughtful people speak because they have something meaningful to share. Careless people speak because they feel they must say something. This video isn't about being shy or introverted. This is about becoming thoughtful, becoming centered, becoming calm, controlled, and yes, even powerful, through the art of deep listening. Because when you truly listen, you protect your energy, you enhance your perception, you sharpen your focus, and you calm your mind. By the end of this video, you will understand the hidden power of deep listening. Discover the life-changing benefits of being fully present in conversations. Learn how to use active listening as a tool for success, and master the art of meaningful connection through fewer, more impactful words. This video will not only inspire you, but will also enhance your English vocabulary, improve your pronunciation, and transform the way you communicate and think. So stay with me until the end, because these insights might fundamentally change your entire approach to communication. Benefit 1. You gain valuable information. Others miss. When you practice deep listening, you position yourself steps ahead of others. When you listen more than you speak, you don't reveal your thoughts prematurely. You don't expose your plans. You don't share every idea or intention. You observe, absorb, and process. Let me share a powerful example with you. There was a young woman who decided to start her own design business. When she told her colleagues, they immediately responded with doubt. That industry is too competitive. You don't have enough experience. It's too risky right now. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince them. She simply smiled and listened, even to their criticism. While others were posting about their ambitions on social media, she was quietly researching her market, developing her skills, working through challenges late into the night. Some laughed at her modest beginnings. 18 months later, they were astonished. Not only had she built a thriving business, but she had secured contracts with clients they had been trying to reach for years. When they asked her, "How did you do it when everything was against you?" she simply replied, "I was too busy listening and learning while others were busy talking." Deep listening had given her access to information others missed. It kept her focused on what mattered. It protected her from distractions and gave her the advantage of understanding what her potential clients truly needed, because she had trained herself to hear what wasn't being said. So remember this. Someone who deeply listens always moves ahead because they're not wasting precious energy trying to prove themselves. They're gathering intelligence that others are freely giving away. Benefit 2. You understand people's true intentions. When you practice deep listening, you create space for others to reveal themselves. And when they speak freely, they unconsciously show you who they truly are. You begin to recognize patterns in their communication. You start to sense what motivates them, what frightens them, what they value most. Let me give you a powerful real-world example. Imagine you're at a team meeting at work. Everyone is speaking quickly, sharing ideas, competing for attention. But you You're practicing something different. You're sitting calmly, observing with full attention. You're not just hearing words, you're noticing tone, facial expressions, the pauses between sentences, the reactions others have when someone else is speaking. Gradually, patterns emerge. You notice that one colleague always interrupts others but becomes defensive when interrupted. Another colleague speaks with confidence but never contributes original ideas. Another quietly offers brilliant insights but only when directly asked. While they see you as simply attentive, you're actually mapping the entire social and psychological landscape of the room. You're gathering invaluable information about who can be trusted, who seeks validation, who thinks creatively, who might be a valuable ally. And all this happens while others remain completely unaware that they're revealing so much about themselves. That's the hidden power of deep listening. The more experienced you become at truly listening, the less you need to speak. Because now you're listening to understand the person, not just preparing your next response. In business negotiations, in relationships, in everyday interactions. The person who listens deeply always has the advantage because deep listening gives you the space to process what's really happening beneath the surface of the conversation. Benefit 3. Silence creates powerful moments of influence. In communication, deep listening isn't just about hearing, it's about strategic presence. And one of the most powerful principles in negotiation, leadership, and persuasion is this: the person who speaks least often holds more influence. Why? Because when you speak quickly and frequently, you expose your thoughts and position. You show your cards. You give power away to the other person. But when you listen deeply and respond thoughtfully, you create a space that others feel compelled to fill, often revealing more than they intended. Let me share a compelling example. There was a woman interviewing for a senior position at a prestigious company. The interviewer explained the role and then said, "We're prepared to offer $95,000 annually for this position. How does that sound?" Instead of responding immediately, the woman maintained thoughtful eye contact, nodded slightly to acknowledge she heard, and then simply remained silent. 5 seconds passed, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. The silence became increasingly uncomfortable, but only for the interviewer. Finally, the interviewer spoke again. "Of course, given your exceptional experience, we might be able to go up to $110,000. Would that be more appropriate?" The woman hadn't said a single word, yet she'd secured a $15,000 increase simply through the power of deep listening and strategic silence. This isn't manipulation, it's masterful communication. In every significant negotiation, whether in business, diplomacy, or personal relationships, the person who rushes to fill silence often surrenders their advantage. Even in daily conversations, notice how rarely people are comfortable with silence. They rush to fill it, often saying more than they intended. But when you become comfortable with those quiet moments, you gain remarkable control over the direction and depth of the interaction. Remember, in many cases, power doesn't come from speaking first. It comes from listening fully and responding with intention. Benefit 4. You maintain clarity in challenging situations. When difficulty arises, most people react immediately. They speak without thinking. They act without clarity. Their words and actions come from emotion rather than wisdom. But the person who practices deep listening responds differently. They pause, they absorb, they process. And because of this, they navigate challenges with remarkable effectiveness. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates this perfectly. A seasoned emergency room doctor was known throughout the hospital for her extraordinary calm during crises. During one particularly chaotic night, multiple trauma patients arrived simultaneously. The team was overwhelmed, voices were rising, and panic was beginning to set in. Instead of adding to the noise, the doctor took a deep breath, lowered her voice, and began asking clear, focused questions. She listened intently to each response before speaking again. A nurse later described the transformation. It was like she created an island of calm in the middle of the storm. By listening so carefully, she helped everyone else slow down and focus on what actually needed to be done. When asked about her approach, the doctor explained, "In emergency medicine, the person who listens most carefully makes the fewest mistakes. When everyone is shouting, that's precisely when you need to become quieter and listen more deeply. The critical information is often found in the details others miss when they're too busy reacting." This principle applies far beyond medical emergencies. Whether you're facing a crisis at work, a conflict in a relationship, or any situation where emotions run high, your ability to listen deeply rather than react immediately becomes your greatest strength. Deep listening gives you time. Time gives you clarity. Clarity gives you the power to respond effectively rather than react emotionally. Even in nature, we see this principle at work. The most successful predators aren't those that make the most noise. They're the ones that listen most attentively before making their move. They stay quiet. They focus completely. And when they do move, they do so with precision. So the next time you face a challenging situation, resist the urge to speak immediately. Instead, listen deeply, breathe calmly, and give yourself the gift of clarity before you respond. Benefit 5. Deep listening builds inner strength. In our world of constant noise and distraction, deep listening isn't just a communication skill, it's a form of mental training. It's not emptiness or passivity, it's active engagement that builds remarkable inner resources. When you practice deep listening, you aren't doing nothing. You're doing something incredibly powerful that may not be immediately visible to others. Let me introduce you to a profound example from the world of elite athletics. Before becoming one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar studied under martial arts legend Bruce Lee. What surprised Abdul-Jabbar most wasn't Lee's physical abilities, but his extraordinary capacity for deep listening. Bruce could listen with his entire being, Abdul-Jabbar recalled. When you spoke to him, you felt like the only person in the world. Nothing existed except that conversation. That same quality of attention made him unstoppable as a martial artist. He could listen to his opponent's body with such complete focus that he could anticipate their moves before they knew what they were going to do themselves. This form of complete attention, this deep listening, wasn't just a social skill for Lee. It was fundamental training that built his legendary focus, discipline, and presence of mind. We see this pattern repeated among many exceptional individuals across fields. They don't constantly seek external validation or fill every moment with noise. Instead, they cultivate the ability to be fully present, to listen deeply not just to others, but to themselves and their surroundings. This practice builds remarkable mental resources: patience, emotional regulation, clarity of thought, inner confidence, and profound concentration. These qualities don't emerge from constant talking or distraction. They develop through the discipline of deep listening. Even in today's world, look at those who achieve lasting impact versus those who create momentary noise. The most influential leaders, thinkers, and creators aren't necessarily the loudest or most visible in every moment. They're often those who have developed the capacity to listen deeply, to colleagues, to markets, to culture, to emerging patterns others miss. So understand this truth. Deep listening isn't just something you do in conversation. It's something you cultivate as a fundamental strength. It builds you mentally, emotionally, and professionally. It develops discipline, patience, emotional intelligence, mental clarity, and most importantly, authentic power. Benefit 6. Deep listening transforms negotiations. Negotiation isn't primarily about persuasive speaking. It's about understanding what the other party truly values and needs. And for this, deep listening is your most powerful tool. When you listen deeply in a negotiation, you don't project desperation. You don't reveal your position prematurely. You don't allow emotions to dictate the outcome. Instead, you create a space where the other party feels heard and often tells you exactly what you need to know to reach a favorable agreement. Consider this powerful example from the business world. A small technology company was negotiating with a much larger corporation for a potential partnership. The larger company's representatives arrived with a detailed presentation and immediately began outlining their terms, clearly expecting the smaller company to simply accept whatever was offered. Instead of interrupting or immediately countering with their own demands, the CEO of the smaller company listened with complete attention. She asked thoughtful questions focused entirely on understanding the larger company's actual needs and concerns behind their stated positions. She noticed something revealing. Whenever certain technical requirements were mentioned, the lead negotiator became slightly tense. Through patient, focused listening, she realized their aggressive stance was covering a significant concern about implementation timelines. When she finally spoke about terms, she addressed this underlying concern directly. It seems that your team is particularly concerned about the technical integration timeline. What if we structured the agreement with specific milestones that would give you complete visibility and confidence in our progress? The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted. The larger company's representatives visibly relaxed, and the negotiation transformed from confrontational to collaborative. Later, one of her team members asked how she knew to focus on that particular concern. She explained, "I wasn't listening to their words as much as I was listening to what they weren't saying. When you listen deeply enough, people will tell you exactly what they need, often without realizing they're doing so." This is the transformative power of deep listening in negotiation. You allow the other party to reveal their true priorities. You listen not just to respond, but to truly understand the underlying concerns and motivations. And sometimes, your thoughtful listening creates space for the other party to reconsider their own position. They begin negotiating with themselves, adjusting their expectations without you having to demand it. The most successful negotiators worldwide, whether in business, diplomacy, or conflict resolution, share this quality. They don't dominate through forceful talking. They influence through masterful listening. They don't interrupt. They don't rush. They create an environment where the real issues can emerge. Remember this principle. In negotiation, the person who listens most deeply often gains the greatest advantage. Benefit 7. You develop deeper self-understanding. Most people today are strangers to themselves. They know more about celebrities' lives than about their own inner landscape. They can recite statistics about their favorite sports teams but can't explain why they feel unfulfilled despite external success. Why does this happen? Because our world is saturated with noise. We're surrounded by constant input. Social media notifications, breaking news, endless opinions, urgent demands, perpetual entertainment. In this endless noise, your own inner voice becomes nearly impossible to hear. But here's a profound truth. The moment you practice deep listening, you begin to reconnect with yourself. Deep listening isn't just about hearing others more clearly. It's about creating the space to hear yourself. When you develop the capacity to listen without immediate reaction, you can finally notice your own patterns of thought and emotion. Let me share a transformative example from real life. There was a highly successful executive who seemed to have everything. impressive career achievements, financial security, and social recognition. Yet she felt increasingly empty and disconnected. Following a health scare, she decided to take a brief sabbatical. For the first time in decades, she stepped away from constant productivity and created space for deep listening, not just to others, but to herself. The first few days were surprisingly difficult. Without constant activity and noise, uncomfortable questions surfaced. Was she truly fulfilled by her career path? Did her relationships have genuine depth? What were her authentic values versus those she had absorbed from her professional culture? In her journal, she wrote, "I've spent 20 years in rooms full of people, yet I'm realizing I've never truly listened, not to others, and certainly not to myself. I've been hiding from my own truth by staying perpetually busy." As she continued practicing deep listening in all aspects of her life, she began recognizing patterns she'd never noticed before. How certain work environments drained her energy while others energized her. How specific relationships left her feeling valued while others subtly diminished her. How her body had been sending signals of stress that she'd systematically ignored. This deeper self-understanding led to thoughtful changes in her life. Not dramatic external shifts, but meaningful realignments that brought her professional choices, relationships, and daily habits into greater harmony with her authentic values. That's what deep listening to yourself provides. It's not therapy, it's not mystical. It's simply creating the space to notice what's already there beneath the noise. When you develop the capacity for deep listening, you begin distinguishing between what truly matters to you and what you've been conditioned to pursue. You recognize habitual reactions that no longer serve you. You identify values that genuinely guide you rather than those you've adopted from others. In deep listening, there's no judgment, no pressure, no expectation, only the opportunity to hear your own wisdom. Remember this truth. You cannot grow until you know yourself. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. And you cannot build an authentic future until you've listened deeply to your present reality. Benefit 8. Deep listening earns genuine respect. We live in a world where everyone is competing for attention. Look at me. Listen to me. Follow me. Buy from me. The average person is bombarded with thousands of messages daily, each one shouting louder than the last. But here's the paradox. The more noise you make, the less impact you have. When everyone is shouting, no one stands out. Now imagine a different approach. In a room where everyone is competing to speak, one person enters who is completely present, who listens with genuine interest, who observes thoughtfully before contributing. The difference is immediately noticeable. People begin wondering, who is this person who listens so intently? What do they know that allows such confidence and calm? Why aren't they rushing to prove themselves like everyone else? That's the magnetic quality that deep listening creates. Attention without effort, respect without demand. Let me share a compelling example. There was a new director who joined the executive team of a struggling company. In her first few meetings, she surprised everyone by speaking very little. Instead, she listened with extraordinary focus as others debated familiar problems and proposed familiar solutions. Some initially mistook her quietness for lack of confidence or expertise, but they soon noticed something remarkable about her quality of attention. When someone spoke, she gave them complete focus. She asked insightful questions that revealed she was hearing not just their words, but the concerns and values behind those words. When she finally shared her perspective in the third meeting, the room fell silent. Her observations were so precise, her understanding of the company's challenges so nuanced, that her words carried unusual weight. A colleague later commented, "She accomplished in 3 weeks what most executives fail to do in 6 months. She truly understood our culture and challenges before trying to change anything. When she finally spoke, we all listened because she had earned that right by listening to us first. Within a year, she had become the most influential leader in the organization, not through asserting authority, but through the respect she'd earned by deep listening. This pattern appears consistently across fields. The people who command genuine respect aren't those who demand attention, but those who give it generously and thoughtfully. You don't need to be the loudest voice in every room. You don't need to prove your intelligence in every conversation. You simply need to be the most attentive, the most present, the person who listens deeply enough to understand what others miss. Because in a world where authentic attention has become increasingly rare, the person who truly listens stands out without effort. The world naturally pays attention to those who demonstrate they know how to pay attention themselves. Benefit 9. Deep listening builds unshakable trust. Trust isn't created through impressive words or grand promises. True trust emerges when people feel genuinely heard and understood. In a world where people say anything to impress and everything to manipulate, deep listening becomes your signature of authenticity. Deep listening builds trust because it demonstrates that you value understanding over being right. You prioritize connection over performance. You care enough to be fully present rather than mentally preparing your next statement. Let me ask you something personal. When you're facing a truly difficult moment in life, who do you turn to? The friend who immediately offers advice and solutions? Or the friend who creates a space where you can be completely honest? Who listens without judgment? Who stays present even in uncomfortable silence? Most of us instinctively seek out the second type of person when we're most vulnerable. That's because deep listening creates a unique form of safety that superficial conversation cannot provide. Consider this powerful example from the medical field. Dr. Adrienne Boissy, a neurologist specializing in multiple sclerosis, was known for her extraordinary relationship with patients facing this challenging diagnosis. When asked about her approach, she explained something surprising. The most important medical tool I use isn't in my lab coat. It's the practice of deep listening. When a patient first receives a life-altering diagnosis, they don't primarily need medical facts. They need to know they've been truly heard and that their fears and concerns matter. She described her method. I sit down, I make eye contact, I put away the chart and the computer, and then I simply ask, "What are you most concerned about right now?" And then I listen, not just to their words, but to their silences, their body language, the questions they're afraid to ask. The impact of this approach was remarkable. Her patients consistently showed higher treatment adherence, better outcomes, and significantly greater satisfaction, not because she provided different medical interventions, but because the foundation of trust created through deep listening transformed how patients engaged with their own treatment. This principle extends far beyond medicine. In every relationship, professional, personal, or communal, deep listening creates a unique form of trust. People sense when you're genuinely present versus when you're simply waiting for your turn to speak. When your listening becomes your strength, your character becomes your voice. People don't trust those who talk excessively because instinctively we recognize that volume often masks uncertainty. But when you speak less and listen more deeply, your words naturally carry greater weight. Even in leadership positions, the most trusted leaders aren't those who dominate through talking. They're those who demonstrate they understand the challenges, concerns, and perspectives of those they lead, something possible only through genuine, deep listening. So remember, if you want to build unshakable trust in any relationship, don't focus primarily on finding the right words. Focus instead on creating the space for true understanding through the practice of deep listening. Benefit 10. Deep listening creates profound connections. If you want to build relationships with genuine depth and resilience, deep listening isn't just helpful, It's absolutely essential. In friendships, in family relationships, in romantic partnerships, the most meaningful connections aren't created through constant talking, but through knowing when to be fully present and deeply attentive. When someone is experiencing joy, they don't just need congratulations, they need someone who will listen fully to their excitement and pride. When someone is experiencing sorrow, they don't primarily need advice. They need someone who will create space for their grief without trying to fix or minimize it. When someone is sharing something important to them, they don't need evaluation. They need someone who will receive their truth with genuine interest and care. Let me share a story that beautifully illustrates this principle. There was an elderly couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. During the celebration, their granddaughter asked them, "What's your secret? How have you maintained such a strong connection for so many years?" The grandmother smiled and said something unexpected. "We never stopped being curious about each other. Even after 60 years, we still listen to each other as if we might discover something new. Because the truth is, we always do." Her husband added, "Many couples stop listening deeply after a few years. They think they already know everything about each other. But people are always changing, always growing. If you're not listening deeply, you'll miss who your partner is becoming." This simple wisdom contains profound truth. In lasting relationships, deep listening isn't just a communication technique. It's a fundamental expression of continuing care and interest in the other person's evolving inner world. Look at nature for a parallel. The relationship between certain trees and mycorrhizal fungi beneath the forest floor is one of the most successful partnerships in biology. The trees don't broadcast, they listen. Through their root systems, they receive chemical signals from the fungi network, adjusting their growth and resource allocation in response. This deep, silent responsiveness creates a relationship that can last for centuries. Human connections follow a similar pattern. The deepest bonds aren't maintained through constant declaration, but through attentive presence. The willingness to truly hear not just what the other person is saying, but what they're experiencing. In practice, this means sometimes sitting in comfortable silence rather than filling every moment with words. It means asking questions from genuine curiosity rather than to direct the conversation. It means noticing subtle shifts in tone or energy that suggest something important beneath the surface. We often think relationships are built through words. "I love you," "I appreciate you," "I'm sorry." But the most powerful connections are created in the spaces between those words, in the quality of attention we offer each other. So if you want relationships with genuine depth and resilience, learn to listen more deeply, react less immediately, and create more space for authentic presence. Because the person who knows how to truly listen is the one who knows how to truly connect. How to master deep listening. 5 practical steps. Now that you understand the transformative benefits of deep listening, you might be wondering, how can I develop this skill in my own life? Here are 5 powerful practices that will help you master the art of deep listening and transform your communication from ordinary to extraordinary. Step 1. Practice the sacred pause. The most fundamental skill in deep listening doesn't start with the ears, but with the mind. It begins with mastering the pause between hearing and responding. This pause, even just 3 seconds, can completely transform your conversations, your relationships, and your effectiveness in every area of life. Here's how to practice. The next time someone asks you a question or shares something important, resist the immediate urge to respond. Take a breath. Create a small space between their words and yours. In that pause, ask yourself, have I truly understood what they're saying? What might they need in this moment? This simple practice prevents reactive communication and creates space for thoughtful response. Try this in different contexts. When someone criticizes your work, Pause before defending yourself. When someone shares exciting news, pause to fully absorb their joy before sharing your own. When someone asks for advice, pause to consider what they're really seeking. Even in digital communication, institute a pause before hitting send on important messages. Ask yourself, have I really heard what the other person was asking? Am I responding to their actual concern or to my interpretation of it? The pause isn't about being slow or unresponsive. It's about creating space for genuine understanding before formulating your response. With practice, this sacred pause becomes natural, allowing you to listen and respond from a place of clarity rather than reaction. Step 2. Develop focused attention. In our age of constant distraction, the ability to give someone your complete, undivided attention has become increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Deep listening requires temporarily setting aside everything else to be fully present with the person speaking. This means physically putting down your phone, turning away from your computer, and adjusting your body language to signal complete attention. But focused attention goes beyond these external signals. It means temporarily setting aside your own internal distractions as well. Your judgments, your similar experiences, your solutions, your desire to impress. Practice this. The next time someone is speaking to you about something important, notice when your mind begins formulating a response before they've finished. Gently bring your attention back to their words, their expressions, their tone. Make your only goal in that moment to understand them completely. Start with short periods, perhaps practicing focused attention for just 5 minutes in a conversation. Gradually extend this capacity as it becomes more natural. This practice isn't just beneficial for your relationships, it's transformative for your own mind. In a world of fractured attention, the ability to focus completely on one thing is increasingly rare and increasingly powerful. Step 3. Listen beyond words. Deep listening isn't limited to processing verbal content. It involves tuning into the complete communication happening in any interaction, much of which occurs beyond words. Research suggests that as little as 7% of emotional communication happens through the actual words spoken. The rest comes through tone, pace, facial expressions, body language, and the spaces between words. To practice listening beyond words, begin paying attention to tone. Does their voice tighten or relax when discussing certain topics? Pace. Do they speed up or slow down at particular points? Emphasis. Which words receive special emphasis or energy? Hesitation. Where do they pause or seem uncertain? Body language. What are their posture, gestures, and expressions communicating? Omissions. What relevant information is conspicuously absent? This multi-dimensional listening reveals layers of communication that words alone cannot convey. It helps you notice when someone says, "I'm fine," but their body communicates distress, or when they say, "It's not important," while their tone suggests the opposite. Practice this skill in everyday interactions. When speaking with a colleague, friend, or family member, deliberately tune into these nonverbal aspects of their communication. Without analyzing or judging, simply notice what additional information becomes available when you listen with all your senses. This form of holistic attention transforms ordinary conversations into opportunities for profound understanding. Step 4. Ask questions that deepen understanding. Questions are powerful tools in deep listening, but only when they serve understanding rather than directing the conversation where you want it to go. Many people ask questions to demonstrate their knowledge, to steer the conversation toward their interests, or to set up their next point. Deep listening involves a different kind of questioning, one that genuinely explores the other person's perspective and experience. Practice asking questions that Clarify understanding. Could you help me understand what you mean when you say? Explore emotions. How did you feel when that happened? Reveal values. What matters most to you about this situation? Uncover needs. What would be most helpful for you right now? Invite depth. Could you tell me more about that experience? Notice that these questions are open rather than closed, curious rather than leading, and focused on the other person's experience rather than introducing your own perspective. When practicing this skill, resist the urge to ask questions that actually disguise advice. Have you tried? Or that shift attention to yourself. That reminds me of With practice, thoughtful questioning becomes a natural extension of your listening, creating space for deeper sharing and connection. Step 5. Develop comfort with silence. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of deep listening is becoming comfortable with silence. In conversation, most people feel an almost irresistible urge to fill any pause longer than a second or two. Yet silence is not empty space. It's often where the most important communication happens. Silence gives people time to process their thoughts, connect with deeper feelings, and formulate what's most important to express. To practice comfort with silence, start small. When a natural pause occurs in conversation, resist the urge to fill it immediately. Allow the silence to extend just a second or two longer than feels comfortable. Notice your internal reaction to silence. Does it make you anxious, impatient, curious? Simply observing these reactions helps reduce their power. In important conversations, explicitly create space for reflection. Let's both take a moment to think about that before continuing. Gradually extend your comfort with shared silence. In close relationships, practice sitting together comfortably without the need for constant conversation. As you develop this capacity, you'll notice something remarkable. Silence often invites the most authentic and meaningful communication. When given the gift of unhurried space, people frequently share thoughts and feelings they might otherwise keep hidden. The ability to be comfortable with silence doesn't just transform your conversations, it transforms your relationship with yourself, creating internal space for your own deepest insights to emerge. Conclusion: the transformative power of deep listening. As we reach the end of our exploration, I want to leave you with one essential truth. Deep listening is not just a skill you use occasionally. It's a way of being in the world that fundamentally transforms your experience and impact. When you master deep listening, you master the art of genuine connection with others, with yourself, and with the world around you. You don't need to dominate conversations to be influential. You don't need to prove yourself constantly. You don't need to react to every challenge or criticism. Because when you listen deeply, you become centered, you become powerful, you become present, and you become free. The world will test your commitment to this practice. Some people will misinterpret your thoughtfulness as weakness. Some will try to provoke you into reactive communication. Some will feel uncomfortable with the clarity your listening brings. Let them. You stay centered. Continue listening deeply. Protect your energy. Speak with intention rather than reaction. Because the day your presence speaks for you, the day your understanding speaks for you, the day your wisdom speaks for you, the world will listen without interruption. You don't have to prove your worth through endless words. You are already enough. You are already significant. You simply need to trust the power of deep listening. If this message resonated with you, if it awakened something important within you, please subscribe to Avenue of Words. Every week, we don't just help you improve your English. We share wisdom that can transform the way you communicate, connect, and move through the world. Until next time, listen deeply, speak thoughtfully, and remember, your most powerful conversations often begin in silence. Thank you for being here. I look forward to our next conversation.